guys, welcome back to Days of Darkness and welcome to my review for the Purge election year. This one came out in 2016. It is starring Frank Grillo, Elizabeth Mitchell, and Betty Gabriel and was directed by James DeMonaco. So, I've said it once, I've said it before. This is not a series I am overly familiar with. It is not a Friday the 13th type series where I've seen all the films hundreds of times, and it's just not that series for me. That being said, I do distinctly remember my initial reactions having gone and seen this film back in 2016, bought my ticket, sat my ass down, and watched this film in theaters with a large group of people. And at the time, I did not like it. I did not like this movie at all. I remember enjoying the first two, but to me, this one just did not strike my fancy back then. Was not impressed with this film at all. Now, when I go into a movie, viewing a movie for the channel, and I know I have past negative opinions of it, I will always try and go in with a clear state of mind and, kind of let the movie tell its own story, especially if it's a film I haven't seen in a very long time. Obviously, I've gotten older. My tastes in film have broadened quite drastically since then. So, I was curious what this film would do for a modern Alex. And I gotta say, I think 2016 Alex was in a little bit of a bad mood. He's kind of a moody guy back then. I enjoyed this film. I liked it. I didn't love it. There's a lot of rough stuff in this movie that I really, really think hampers this film and keeps a good movie from being a great movie. And don't worry, for all you election year fans, I do have positive things to say about this movie. But first of all, we gotta get into some of those hang-ups for me. Get the bad stuff out of the way. Go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off right now. Number one, the dialogue. Whoo! Oh, man. I don't go into a Purge film expecting Shakespeare. You know what I mean? I don't go into it expecting Tarantino, expecting Scorsese. I know what these films are. They're meant to be fun. They're meant to be a good time. But I get the impression from the first two Purge movies that there is something to say with these movies. It's not necessarily just about carnage and chaos. These movies do have a bit of a message to them about classism and, all that bummer stuff. But it's, necessary subject matter. And that tells me that to a degree, these films are meant to have a little bit more of a serious tone to them. So it really hampers that intention when you have very corny, very cheesy, very unfitting dialogue during moments of pretty high tension. Shout out to the first ever review on Days of Darkness, by the way. High tension. Yeah. But anyways, it just did not work for me. There were moments in this film that, I try not to harp on dialogue too much, but, the writer in me, when it hits bad, it hits bad. And I gotta point it out, If this were some cheesy, schlocky 80s slasher film, no budget type stuff, I would point it out, but it wouldn't be as big of a flaw. But it's a case-by-case thing, and this is not a cheesy 80s slasher. This is, a legit Hollywood production. And when you have characters just making these corny little quips and these jokes that just don't land and they're not funny, it really does take me out of things. And hey, if you have your heart set on having comedic levity and having comedic relief, save it. Save it for a time where it is, not so jarring and just out of nowhere and stupid. It just, I won't harp on it too much, but it just really, really hampered the movie a lot for me personally. And speaking of hindrances that really drag this movie down, the only other big one I have would be the time jump. I think the time jump is just like in and of itself, a time jump in a movie series is not a bad thing. It's not like this is the first time it's ever happened, but it's the fact that it's done so carelessly here, and they don't pay attention to a very key thing that I think would really, really, it's one of those things where if you really stop and think about it for a second, you're like, wait, what the fuck? And it really does kind of hamper things a little bit, and it feels like they just didn't think of this at all while making the movie. So, The Purge 2 takes place in this fictional universe in 2023, and we are introduced to Frank Grillo's character, as we now know him in this film, is named Leo. And I would say he is depicted to be in his, mid-40s, early to mid-40s, which would line up with the actor's, real-life age. And we're introduced to that character in that movie, and I think he is really the best part of Anarchy. Has a really, really good story. I think his story wraps up beautifully. He's out for revenge, and he discovers that, killing the man who killed his son in that drunk driving accident, that's not going to solve his ailments. That's not going to give him any peace. And so by the end of the film, he really does have a change of heart, and I thought it was a great way to wrap up that character's story. So what is behind the decision to bring him in to this film? Because, number one, we're talking about the time jump. Purge 2, The Purge Anarchy, takes place in 2023. This film, which is depicting essentially what becomes the last Purge, and we'll get there when we get there, it takes place in 2040, which is 17 years later. So, am I supposed to believe that Leo is 62 in this movie? Assuming that he's like 45 in the Anarchy, you could, put that wherever you want. Point being, he is nowhere near the age that his character is supposed to be, if the timeline is anything to go off of. And I just feel like it was a total misstep. Because number one, Leo's character goes nowhere in this film. And the same could be said for Dante as well. It's like, are these characters just ageless? Are we not paying attention to it? It's so jarring and stupid, and it seems like it was a very, very huge oversight in this film, which is unfortunate. But the other big thing and big problem I have as far as Frank Grillo's character Leo is concerned is the fact that he does not need to be in this movie. Like, at all. His character does not evolve at all. He's just a badass. Like, it's cool seeing him, if you're okay with ignoring the timeline shit, but it's like, there is no reason why you couldn't have had, because he's the head of security for Charlie, who's, up for a presidential election, and she's going after this kooky-ass, villainous minister guy who's in good with the Founding Fathers, yada, yada, yada. He's the head of her security. There's no reason why you couldn't have had that be somebody else. Maybe there was contractual obligations with Frank Grillo, and he had to be in 2 movies, and if that's the case, why are you writing it like this? That's no excuse, mind you. But that's the only thing I can really think of for any logistical reason why he would even be in this film. It's just, it makes no sense. It makes absolutely zero sense. And I just think it's ridiculous. But with all that being said, there are things about this film that I do enjoy, believe it or not. Mainly the story here. I like the fact that, the founding fathers are, kind of pushed up against a wall in this one. And their backs are really against the wall here. There's this presidential candidate who they know if she gets elected, the first thing she's going to do is get rid of the purge. Which it would be nice if presidents really did have that amount of power to get rid of some of the bullshit in this country, but it's not really how it works. I feel like even with, something like the purge, it would just be in, court hell forever and it just wouldn't get anywhere. But, it's a movie, so fuck it. They know the first thing she's going to do is just get rid of the purge. So they take away the rule of political figures not being able to get killed. And now they can. So then that leads into Leo's character, protecting her. And that really does drive the plot forward. And it is all centered around Charlie, Elizabeth Mitchell's character. And I gotta say, she is easily my favorite part of this movie. I really, really did think, great performance. I thought that character was so cool. Very, very dramatic introduction of her seeing her whole family slaughtered in front of her during a purge night, and then we jump 18 years into the future, and she's running for president. It's like, I feel like, she's pretty well adjusted for seeing her whole family slaughtered in front of her face. But hey, we all process these things differently. I probably would have lost my fucking mind. But, props to her. So, I do really think, she is kind of the moral compass of the film. I love the fact that, these people are out to kill her, but then when the opportunity comes for Dante and the Resistance to kill this just evil fuck that is running against her for presidency, she's like, no, don't do it. Like, I can win without doing this. If you kill him, I love the line, if you kill him, he becomes a martyr and we lose. Like, I really think there was a lot of cool moments with her and her 60-year-old 60-year-old head of security, Leo, who's clearly not in his 60s. That just drives me up the fucking wall. Anyways, they are not the only two protagonists in this film. I noticed, this one and Anarchy both like to have kind of separate groups of protagonists that kind of clasp together, and then we have our little team for the film. Joe, who runs his own like kind of corner store deli type shop. Not deli. It's, it's a little convenience store type deal. And obviously the purge is coming up, and he loses his he loses his purge insurance, which I thought was funny. It seemed like it would be a necessary thing, though, for this universe. People being able to just cave in your fucking local small business, and it doesn't seem like it would be too out of the realm of possibility. But I just did, my purge insurance just went up by thousands. It's just, for some reason, it was funny. But we got Joe Dixon, who is, I would say, probably the leader of bad dialogue. No shame to the actor who portrayed him. I think he does a fine job. You say the lines you were given. It's typically how it works. And, he just, that character is really the one who gives off a majority of the bad dialogue in this movie. He's not the only one, mind you, but yeah. And then we have his buddy Marco, who immigrated to the United States, is basically Joe's right-hand man. And then we have Lainey, who is a infamous purger that has now turned her life around. And so we have that side of things, and they eventually join up with Leo and Charlie, and we have our little entourage, and they go on their little purge adventures and get each other out of some pretty deep shit here and there. And yeah, again, I think the protagonists of this film are fun. I think I don't really see anything too wrong with them as characters. Just some of the lines they are given. Now, however, I did mention the fact that a lot of these bad moments of dialogue are intended to be funny and they're intended to be jokes, and it's just not funny. That being said, there is a lot of unintentional comedy in this film. Just very random moments of just showing people on the street, and just in very, very just odd moments, very weird, out of nowhere moments. There's one moment where you're just a panning shot of a guy. He's just this big old ripped motherfucker, and he's covered in blood, and he's like, "It's survival of the fittest. I am the fucking fittest." And you're like, what the? Where did this come from? I remember watching this, and I did not remember that at all, and it fucking cracked my shit up, man. I thought it was hilarious. And there's another moment where it's these gang members who eventually do end up helping our protagonists, but at the moment they're, I guess, kind of doing like a fight club thing, and they're like they're not like killing each other or anything, but they're kind of sparring and brawling with one another. And there is a moment where one of these gang members roars like a fucking lion. Like he gives like a warrior cry. And for some reason in the editing process, they're like, it would be fucking badass. A lion roar. It's like, no, that's fucking stupid. But it did serve for some laughs, albeit not intentional. But that aside, as I've said, the protagonists in this film are quite fun. And another really fun aspect of this film are the villains. This is the first time we really get a good look at the Founding Fathers and just how cartoonishly evil they are. In the country we live in, I don't doubt that, a lot of politicians do talk like this, but maybe not to this extent. It came off very corny, very hammy. But overall, they are entertaining villains. And speaking of entertaining villains, we gotta talk about Minister Owens. Whoa. So this is the guy who Charlie is running against for the presidency. He is a minister, and obviously with that, they are all about the purge, and they're all about cleansing their souls of all their sin by, killing on this one night. And it's so hammy. And, we get to the finale of the movie, and it's very, 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 very hammy. And, he has his deacon, I think that's what they would call the guy, and the freaky red-haired dude, pale motherfucker. They wheel out they kidnap Charlie at one point, and they wheel this poor fucker out basically as a showcase of what they're about to do to Charlie, and they they wheel this guy out, and he's like, "Cleanse your soul," and this dude just starts stabbing him, and Minister Owens is like holding on to his shoulder, and he's like, ugh. It's like, what the. It's so hammy, but it's great. It's fun to have just cartoony ass evil fucking villains like this. It's just fun. And by that point, obviously, when we get to all of their stuff and their, antics, by that point, I've dealt with the bad dialogue and I've dealt with the hammy shit, and I'm just like, all right, let's just have fun with this. So, that aspect of things, as far as the cheesiness, was actually quite welcome, and I think they're very fun villains. I will say though, not the smartest in the world. You hire this militia because the whole point is they're trying to kill Charlie. They're trying to stop her from becoming president of the United States, because it's pretty clear she's gonna win. Just because so many people are fucking sick of the purge. So it's clear she's going to win, so they need her dead. You hire this militia. And of course, again, cartoonishly evil main like leader of the militia. He has like fucking swastika tattoos and shit. It's like what are we gonna do to really, convey the fact that this guy's evil? It's like, oh, let's make him a Nazi. It's like, oh, okay. Like it never plays into the movie at all. He's an evil Nazi guy. But it's this militia that they hire to fucking kidnap Charlie. And I'm like, dude, these are highly trained motherfuckers. Just have them kill her. That's it. You win. It's like, why are you doing this whole showcase? Obviously, it doesn't end up working out for Minister Owens. So it's like, why even take the risk? Just put a hit out on her. Someone will fucking kill her. It's like they have that initial plan, the kidnapper. I did like the twist of, at the beginning of the Purge, they're kind of keeping her hunkered down in her room, and they have guards all over the place, and it's actually, they armor the fucking, the windows, and they basically seal her up tight, and there's actually some people in Leo's crew who kind of are the ones who fuck them over and really, betray them. So the fact that, and Leo even says at one point, he's like, I can't fucking trust anybody. Like, I need to get you out of here. I did think that was probably the most effective kind of twist of the film. But why even risk it? Just have them break in there, kill her. Obviously, they didn't plan on Leo, being Leo and being very good at his job. But, yeah, man, it's just, I don't know. Why even risk it? Just dumb. But, again, it's a fucking corny-ass, hammy fucking villain in a pretty corny movie. But, just something I thought I'd bring up. But yeah, so they kidnap her, they kill the one dude, he fucking has this weird orgasm as this guy gets stabbed. And the scary thing is and the scary thing about that joke is I'm only exaggerating a little bit. But he, they kill that dude, then they wheel out Charlie, and he brings all the founding fathers up, and then we have our climactic final battle. Obviously, Leo and the Resistance and our other heroes do eventually break into the church, and we have our final big shootout. And then it's the moment of truth for a somehow also ageless Dante, where, he's the leader of the Resistance, and the Resistance has formed a plan to kill Senator Owens, Minister Owens, whatever you want to call him. And, so I did like the fact that they kind of showcase, like, hey, this Purge is utilized on the good guy's side as well. It's like they're kind of having the same idea. And I like the moral dilemma there, and I like how Charlie's like, no, we have to be better than them. This would just make us hypocrites and yada, yada, yada. I really did think that was the most effective plot element of the film, by far. And, so he has him at gunpoint. And again, this cheesy fucking villain. I think he gives a great performance. Don't get me wrong. It's hilarious. But he's just like, yes. He's acting like fucking, Sidious is basically what he's acting like. He's acting like the fucking Emperor. He's like, good, use your anger, strike me down. It is your right, Purge. And it's like, oh my God. It's just fucking hilarious. But he does end up listening to Charlie, and, they drag him out, and I love the moment he just looks at her, and he's like, you better fucking win. Unfortunately, Dante does not make it through, because the militia guys who kidnapped her are just still there for whatever reason, even though the leader was straight up like, all right, let's go find somewhere to wait out the night. I guess they just decided to come back and help. Were they going to get paid extra? Who knows? Who cares? I'm thinking too much. But yeah, so they're there. We have a really, really cool fight between Leo and the head kind of Nazi leader, militia leader fucking guy. I don't know. But yeah, they do have a really cool knife fight, and it's fucking brutal. Definitely one of the more brutal deaths of the movie, and we will get into Kill the Film, don't you worry. But really cool stuff there. Leo does end up taking that guy out. Unfortunately, Dante is killed during this skirmish, right before the knife fight, actually. gets taken out and pretty much realizes he's done for. So he just does one last ditch effort, takes out a couple guys with a car, and then gets shot the fuck up. So R.I.P. Dante, man. And then, we think all is well, but unfortunately, we still have the weird fucking deacon guy who breaks in, there's this one dude who, like, they're holding all these poor people hostage to kill them for this purge mass. They get in there and they're trying to rescue them. And this one guy tries to run out and just immediately gets shot right in the fucking head. And I'm like, dude, you were so close. You just had to wait a little longer. But such is life, right? But yeah, man, then we get one last shootout where Joe Dixon does end up giving his life as well. And, takes out the murderous deacon motherfucker, the freaky ass dude. But he does end up getting shot one too many times and does end up passing away, which does kind of lead us out of the purge. And I will say this too. The thing I liked about the first two Purge movies is the fact that both the beginning of the Purge and the end of the Purge were both very, very poignant scenes. And they were very impactful scenes and very effective. Not so with this one. The Purge just kind of starts and it just kind of ends. And you're like, okay. You kind of miss out on the fun aspect of, like, the sirens going off and shit. And it's just kind of, he just, Joe dies. And then we get fucking another little time hop. And it's 2 months later. And, Charlie wins the election. And it's like, hoorah. And Marco gets the fucking convenience store. And, we see him fixing it up and stuff. And, it's a fun moment. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool. But it's just very abrupt. This movie really does. The ending feels very rushed. It feels like they were approaching 90 pages. And they're like, oh, fuck, we got to wrap this thing up. And it just kind of ends. You're like, okay, all right. Like, whatever, I guess. But, just, again, this movie is fun, but there are just aspects of it that just don't work for me, and I do think so far it's the weakest of the Purge films, thus far. Well, obviously we have 2 more to go, but yeah, unfortunate. I thought I could really turn it around, thought I could come up here and be like, man, I don't know what the fuck I was talking about, but yeah, I've lightened up on it a little bit, but not by much. But anyways, that'll do it for the review portion of the video. But you know what we gotta do now, baby. We gotta get into the blood, the guts, and the gory bits. We gotta get into my kill of the film. Stick around. The Purge election year does kind of have a balancing act as far as positives and negatives for me. That being said, one positive I do have is that as far as the violence and the blood and the guts, it's improved. It's not great, but it has improved quite a bit. Before we were just getting a lot of, shoot 'em ups and a lot of people just getting shot, which is fine, but it's just not, it's not the juicy stuff we're looking for, you know what I mean? And this film does have some good gore in it, man. We have one moment where, there's the obligatory just shots of random carnage in these movies where you just see crazy shit happening. And one of the things is they look down an alleyway and this fucking guy just gets beheaded by a guillotine. And you're like, what the fuck? And so that was pretty crazy. Was not expecting that. We get one dude who gets an arrow through the fucking head, just crazy, which, like, I don't know what they were trying to depict with him. Like, he was just like a zombie. Like, I don't know what the fuck. But he just comes up to, Betty Gabriel's character, comes up to her van, and he's just kind of like, he's just like, it's just kind of standing there. Like, what, are you high? Are you a zombie? What the fuck's going on, dude? And he just gets an arrow through his fucking head, so I guess we'll never know. But, I did enjoy the kill, too, at the Purge Mass, where, you know, again, cleanse your soul, brother, and he's stabbing him, and the fucking minister's just like fucking freaking out. It's just stupid. But that was a fun kill, you know. I will say it was pretty disturbing, the guy, like, just begging for his life. He's like, but it's fucking useless, dude. These guys are out of their fucking mind. But yeah, that was a fun kill. But for me, man, and I didn't even talk about these chicks during the fucking review itself, but the I guess teenage, college aged, you know, girls that are in Joe's convenience store, and they're fucking, you know, trying to steal candy bars, and they're just fucking up the place, and he's like, get the fuck out. Like, get the fuck out of here. And they're just being little fucking dickheads. I'll say this real quick. As characters, awful. Just stupid. And, you know, I get why they're there, but it's just, they're, like, again, horrible, just stupid dialogue. You know, I can tell they were just written, and they're just, you know, you're thinking during it, like, in the writing process, what's like the worst thing that I can have these young girls say to this old man? Like, what's the worst shit I could say? I can make these girls say to just really make the audience hate them, you know? It's just, and it was very, very ham-fisted, very try-hard, and just didn't work for me on a character basis, you know? And then they come back, and she's all covered in blood, and, you know, I will say I love the idea of having them dancing in the street all creepy with Miley Cyrus's Party in the USA playing. I did think that was a fun scene. That was cool. But yeah, as characters, not great. Very one note. Very just, ooh, look how evil we are. But their kills, holy fuck. And I'm not talking about them killing other people, man. Line, man, fucking Betty Gabriel's character. Like I said, she was the infamous Purger from back in the day, and she shows she still fucking got it. You know, Joe calls up for help because this little fucking shithead comes back with these other fucking shitheads, one's in a fucking teddy bear costume, and just, again, just crazy looking shit. Their fucking cars all covered in Christmas lights. It's like, I guess they're not going for stealth. You know, way to draw attention to yourself, but whatever. I put too much thought into these movies. But anyways, Joe Dixon fucking calls in the cavalry, and you get that first shot of her, you know, with that ambulance, man. She just runs two of those motherfuckers over. Boom! And you see a lot of it too, man. They get crushed by that fucking van. You know, she's shooting these guys all to hell. Then she comes up to the main baddie, and she's just, again, she's one of the ones that got run over, so she's already fucked up. And she just takes the fucking shotgun, and this is my kill of the film easily. Just takes the shotgun, points it right at her head, and just blows a fucking hole right through this chick's head, man. I mean, it goes like... I was like, I'm not expecting a lot of gore in these movies, so that was like the first big, poignant, gory moment, and I was just like, holy shit! Like, alright. But, yeah, easily my kill of the film. Yeah, man. The Purge election year, very mixed bag of a movie, but, you know, if you're running through these films, I see no reason not to watch it. Just be prepared for some shitty dialogue, and be prepared to ignore basic continuity. But other than that, have fun. But yeah, guys, that'll do it for today. I know, once again, schedule got thrown off. Thank you for your patience. I actually lost power in this room, so new house problems. But it's all fixed now, as you can see, so I'm hoping we can get back to it. And yeah, man, thank you as always for stopping by. Thank you for supporting the dream. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and for the love of all things gory, keep watching horror. Alright, guys, have a good day.